Let's talk about the 10 beloved cartoon characters with heartbreaking backstories. Coming in at number 10, we've got Tommy Pickles from Rugrats. Now, I know he's not your typical superhero, but to his pals, he's a total hero. This little dude is always leading the charge and helping his friends face their fears. And it turns out, Tommy's bravery might just go all the way back to when he was born. You see, there's this flashback scene where Dee Dee visits him in an incubator, which means he was born premature and had to fight for his life right from the start. No wonder he's so courageous. Next up at number 9, we've got Danny Fenton from Danny Phantom. This guy's life took a wild turn when he accidentally turned himself into a half-ghost after messing with his parents' ghost portal. From that point on, Danny's life was never the same. He was always dealing with pressure from his friends and being hunted by his own parents. Even though Danny was brave and did some pretty heroic stuff, his ghost powers were a major bummer for him. He felt alone and misunderstood, and no matter how hard he tried to do the right thing, his parents still saw the ghost boy as a threat and didn't even recognize him as their son. It's pretty rough stuff if you ask me. At number 8, we've got Timmy Turner from the Fairly OddParents. Now, you might think Timmy's got it made with his 2 fairy godparents who can grant his every wish, but the truth is, his life is far from perfect. You see, fairies are only assigned to kids who are having a really tough time, and Timmy definitely fits that bill. Despite having fairy godparents, Timmy's life is pretty miserable. His parents are neglectful, he gets bullied at school, his babysitter is a nightmare, and he's often left to fend for himself. It's no wonder Timmy wishes for a better life. He just wants the love and attention he never got as a kid. It's pretty sad when you think about it. Coming in at number 7, we've got Splinter from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, if you're a TMNT fan, you know the basic backstory. The Turtles and Splinter got exposed to some radioactive goo and turned into the crime-fighting team we know and love. But Splinter's origin story is actually pretty dark. Before he was a ninja master, Splinter was just a regular rat who belonged to a ninja named Hamato Yoshi. But when Yoshi was killed by the man who would become the Shredder, Splinter escaped and ended up in the sewer, where he mutated into the rat-human hybrid we know today. It's a wild origin story that adds a lot of depth to Splinter's character. At number 6, we've got the one and only Dr. Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb. Now, this guy might not be a traditional hero, but he's definitely not a straight-up villain either. In fact, some fans might even consider him the real MVP of the show, because let's face it, his wacky schemes and over-the-top personality are just plain entertaining. Sure, he tries to do evil stuff, but he always fails in the most hilarious ways possible. You can't help but love the guy. And when you consider his backstory, it's kind of amazing he didn't turn out to be a full-on supervillain. I mean, he had a rough childhood with absent and abusive parents, got abandoned, and was even raised by ocelots for a while. At number 5, we've got Brett Matthews from the classic 80s cartoon, Turbo Teen. If you're not familiar with the show, here's a quick recap. Brett was just a regular high school student until he crashed his car into a top-secret government lab during a crazy thunderstorm. And what did he get for his trouble? Superpowers. But not just any superpowers. He could transform into a sports car when he got too hot, and turn back into a human when he got too cold. Honestly, it's not the coolest superpower out there. In fact, it's kind of a bummer. Most episodes are all about Brett trying to get rid of his powers and go back to being a normal teenager. But hey, it made for some entertaining TV back in the day. At number 4, we've got the one and only Donald Duck from Disney. We all know Donald as part of the hilarious trio with Mickey and Goofy, but did you know that this feathery fellow has been through some tough times? It's easy to forget about his traumatic experiences when we're laughing at his angry outbursts and goofy antics, but let's take a moment to acknowledge what he's been through. Donald was drafted into the military during World War II, which must have been a scary and challenging experience. On top of that, he lost his sister Della, which is a heartbreaking loss for anyone to go through. It's no wonder that Donald gets angry and frustrated. He's dealing with a lot of pain and trauma. So the next time you see him blow his top, remember that there's more to this duck than meets the eye. Coming in at number 3, it's the one and only Harley Quinn from DC Comics. You might know her as the Joker's former sidekick and love interest, but did you know that Harley used to be a psychiatrist named Harleen Quinzel? Yep, she was working at Arkham Asylum when she fell head over heels for the Joker and ended up becoming his partner in crime. But it wasn't all rainbows and roses for Harley. The Joker manipulated and abused her, and she became completely devoted to him. It took a lot of strength, but she eventually broke free and started her own journey. In her HBO Max series, we see her leaning more towards being an anti-hero than a straight-up villain, which is pretty badass if you ask me. Sitting at number 2, we've got the one and only Al Simmons, or Spawn, from Todd McFarlane's iconic comic book series. Al Simmons was a total badass, a highly skilled assassin working for the US government. But when he was betrayed and murdered by his own boss, Jason Wynn, things took a dark turn. In a desperate move, Al made a deal with the devil himself and became a Hellspawn, a powerful but tormented being bound to serve the demon Malebolgia. Even with all that power at his fingertips, Al was consumed by guilt and regret over his past actions and the devilish deal he made. He struggled with his morality, fighting the urge to use his powers for selfish reasons while facing threats from both angels and demons. It's an epic battle between good and evil, and Al Simmons is right at the center of it all. Coming in at number 1, we've got Mark Grayson, or Invincible, from the hit comic book series. Unlike a lot of other superheroes, Mark didn't become a hero because of some tragic event. He just happened to inherit some sweet powers from his alien dad, Omni-Man, and figured he might as well use them for good. But here's the kicker. It turns out Omni-Man wasn't the noble hero Mark thought he was. No, he was actually a ruthless conqueror with his sights set on taking over Earth, and Mark was only born to help him do it. Talk about a twist. Of course, Mark wasn't having any of that, and he had to go head-to-head with his super-powerful father. Their first fight was brutal, and Mark was left barely clinging to life. Invincible definitely takes the concept of daddy issues to a whole new level. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing to the channel, it really helps a lot.